Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our latest webinar and our webinar series from NUITEQ Snowflake. And tonight we'll be talking about creating student choice boards using NUITEQ Snowflake. As always, we have our star of NUITEQ, Danielle Macklin, who will be leading our webinar this evening. And as we do with all other webinars, we're going to ask if you have any questions, please put those in the chat function, and I will ask Danielle the questions as we go along.
Thank you, Jack. Hi, everyone. So today we are going to talk a little bit about how to incorporate student choice boards using NUITEQ Snowflake. And I want to start first by taking a moment to talk a little bit about what a choice board is. So as I'm sharing my screen, so student choice boards, this has become a very popular tool, especially in the remote learning environment. It provides students with an opportunity to do different activities that would assess a particular skill or have them demonstrate their knowledge of content, but they have options to choose from. So what a choice board is, it's an array of activity options that allow students to practice their skill or demonstrate their content knowledge. The really great thing with using a choice board is it provides already built-in differentiation. So it really gets into that how of learning for universal design of learning. We did a webinar series about UDL principles a while back, so I would encourage you to check out that YouTube video to learn a little more about how to incorporate that. But with choice boards, you have the ability to offer different lesson activities that would tap into students who are more visual learners or students who are auditory learners, as well as students who are the kinesthetic learners. And then choice boards also promote student engagement by relating to their preferences and interest. So using a student choice board really taps into that idea of choice and voice in the classroom. It builds in engagement because students have an option of what they want to learn or how to demonstrate what they're learning. So by giving them the option, they're going to have a little bit more of that buy-in. They're already invested in creating whatever the outcome may be. And when creating a student choice board, there's a few different things to check off. And as we go through our webinar today, we'll look at an example of a choice board, and then we'll also go through building a choice board using one of our Snowflake lesson activity templates. So the 4 big things to keep in mind when you are creating a choice board is designing so that the lessons activities, what the students are making or demonstrating, that they're all relatively similar in length and time. You don't want to build a student choice board with a handful of super easy, quick tasks for students to complete. And then on the other end, something that would be more challenging that would take a longer period of time for them to finish. So you want to make sure that it is relatively similar in length. You also want to make sure that the options you are providing target those different learning styles and different interests. You might not necessarily want to have a choice board that has all writing activities or all drawing activities or all performance activities. So something that has a little bit of everything to really tap into those student interests. Student choice boards are also most successful when you have varied technology and hands-on materials. So giving students an opportunity to use technology in a meaningful way, as well as use those hands-on manipulatives or think of more of like the paper and pencil type tasks. And ultimately, you want to make sure that whatever choices you are providing for the students, that the students are able to show their understanding of a content or a skill. So the choice in the activity is going to demonstrate that. And one example that we have, and this lesson activity is available in the Snowflake community. This is one that has been designed for an ELA classroom. So as we can see in our description, this ELA activity can be done as a tic-tac-toe, I think is one of the best ways to do a choice board. So they'd have to pick from each section of the options, and students would use this as a lesson activity to complete maybe at the end of a short story or a novel, something that they've read in class or through their own independent reading. And then this activity is going to be their demonstration of what they've learned. So the idea of a choice board, it's kind of exactly how it sounds. It's a board. It's multiple different options of activities for students to complete or tasks for them to accomplish. So in this case, with our tic-tac-toe, the instructions, which this could be edited, should you choose to find it in the community. The instructions have complete any 3 in a row. So students can complete anything vertically, horizontally, diagonally, any 3 that you would want them to work on. And they have options. So they have creating a Venn diagram, rewriting the ending of the story, creating a plot diagram, designing a new book jacket, writing a letter to the author, creating a social media for the main character, describing how the story would be different if set in a different era, creating a playlist for the story for your favorite character, or using a video tool to create a movie trailer. So with these different choices, this is going to tap into a lot of different learning styles. Your students who are very technology inclined might want to do something where they're creating a social media for the main character. So maybe they're creating a fake Instagram account or a fake Twitter account. And there are tons of free resources online where they have those templates already created. So that would make it easy for a teacher too. Your students who are very artistic might want to do something where they design a new book jacket for the story. They would have to use elements from the story to carry through that message in the book jacket. We also have writing ones, so being able to rewrite parts of the story. Students could also use a video and make a movie about the story. So it really tries to address different interests of your students so that they have options on what they want to do. And by providing students with those options, they're going to have more buy-in on the lesson itself. They're going to be more willing to put in a little bit more work because it's something that they're interested in, that they're engaged in. So that's an example from the Snowflake community. And now we're going to go on how to actually build a choice board. So I started just a quick one right here, and this is a cards template. So I'm going to go and edit. So from our lesson activities, I simply selected the cards option. And the best way to do choice boards, in my opinion, is to make sure that you have kind of a number where you can select up to 3. If you want to modify it, I would recommend maybe doing 4 choices and the students would pick one of the 4 or 2 of the 4. The great thing with creating in Snowflake is you have the ability to duplicate your lesson activities and make any modifications and then send those to students with the differentiations and the modifications already built in. So for this, I'm going to have this be a science lesson. And I'm going to change my directions to tell my students that they need to select 3 options. Now, as you can see for my first card, I have my front of the card, I have the back of the card. I'm going to go through and add in a total of 9, so that we'll do 9 examples. Now, as you're creating your choice board, if you're choosing to do one using the cards template, you can write the choices on either side of the card. So if I have it on the front of the card, let's do one example. Maybe write a letter to an astronaut. This is a space-themed activity. I have it on the front of my card, or I could have it on the back of my card. We build a model of the solar system. So that's going to appear on the back of the card. So as long as you make sure that you are putting it on the same side. So I did want to show, I have this on 2 different sides for now. Regardless of which one you place it on, you can always flip the cards over. So then it's all hidden on one side. So in this case, I'm going to just build my questions on the front of my card, and I'm going to keep that front hidden. This could be used for in-class instruction, where you play this on your interactive panel, and students would come and select the card, just tap, reveal, and then maybe put those students into a group together. Or you could have them so that they are ordered and students would be able to see the options before selecting and then just flip for the ones they want to choose. So there's 2, let's do a couple more. As you can see, as I'm adding in my cards, more options are becoming available and that grid is falling into place. And then for now, I'm just gonna do numbers for now so we don't have to keep watching me type in different things. As we can see now, we have this grid available. These would obviously be filled with different ideas, different choices for your students to complete. And then I can go and I can make all of my edits to make this customized and special for my students. I might want to increase the size of my font. I might want to change the color of my font, add or remove a shadow. I can change the font itself. I also have the option of changing my background. We do have a variety of backgrounds already available, and I know that we have a space one, so it ties in great with my space theme. And then now I have this lesson activity available for my students. So as an instructor, I can also provide my info for what my students would need to do. So I could tell my students, select any 3 cards and complete the activity. I could also provide, if I had a YouTube video about space exploration that I wanted my students to watch, I could add that video here. And I could also add, as you saw in that earlier one, I could add in PDFs to be available for my students, as well as web links. So there's a PowerPoint about choice boards I could add for my students to complete as well. So all of that information can be provided for my students should I choose to use this in remote instruction. Now, using this in your instruction, there's a couple different ideas of how to do that. So I just open up my lesson activity. I really like the space background because it does have this really fun kind of live animation that really engages students. And being this a space themed, I thought it was kind of a fun tie-in. So if I'm using this in my classroom, I could set this up on my interactive panel in the Snowflake app. I could have it opened in multiple zones. So I could have all of the activities in up to 4 different zones and use this as a station rotation where my students could use these instructions as their tasks for completing during class time. I could then jigsaw my students. So all of the students who maybe wrote a letter to an astronaut could then proofread each other's letters, or they could then read their letters to a group of students who wrote a short story from the point of view of an astronaut. So you could have that different interaction among your students for in-person instruction. Now, I know many districts are still doing a remote model or a hybrid model, and the same thing can be done in that setting. This lesson activity can be opened through snowflake.live. And that's a really great thing about having this web-based version and the app. You can create on the web-based version and it will sync with your interactive panel. You could also screen share, just like I'm doing now in our webinar. You can screen share the web-based version with your students if you're meeting over kind of an online meeting platform like Google Meets or Zoom. So those options are available. And you could show students their options and have them discuss which ones they want to do, and use that maybe as a breakout for going into different meeting rooms to work collaboratively with another group of students. You could also take this lesson activity and send it to students. So I'm going to go back to edit. I can send this lesson activity to my students, and they would have access to it if they were enrolled into one of my Snowflake.live classes. So you can see there's just my preview of the lesson activity, and then I can select which class to send that to. And the great thing with this, since you are able to duplicate the lessons, if I wanted to send this only to select students, and then I needed to make modifications or accommodations to the lesson activity, I can send the other students that modified lesson activity as well. And I can assign it with their due date and then notify my students.
Danielle?
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have to send the lesson that way, or can you send it the way that we normally send it from My Lesson Activities?
So from like the My Lesson Activities dashboard?
Yes, I think that's what's meant.
Okay. Yep. So from your My Lesson Activities dashboard, you can use the More Options and then Send to Students right here. So we do have different ways of being able to access to send to students. Once I select Send to Students, I'll be sent right back to the same screen where I can select my class and again, select the students I want to send the lesson activity to. So you can send it while you're editing. If you have created it, you're happy, you're ready to go, you can send it from there, or you can go, if you need to come back to it at a later time, it will be available in your My Lesson Activities dashboard to send to students as well. So that's another way you can send it.
You have a thank you response.
Okay, good. I'm glad I was able to answer that. Other ways that you could incorporate student choice boards in your own instruction is also having students create using Snowflake. So I have my 3 blank ones right here. I could have as part of that instruction that I want my students to create, oops, let's just spell that correctly, a quiz lesson activity about a planet. Or I could add in create a arrange lesson activity about the solar system. Also add in an option of create a groups. Let's do comparing 2 planets. So the great thing with using Snowflake to create student choice boards is students can then create using Snowflake themselves. So they have the ability, once they've created, or once you've added them to a Snowflake class, or they have their account, whether you're using single sign-on, or you've rostered your students with their email addresses and creating a Snowflake class, they then have the ability to access, if I go back to My Lesson Activities, they have the ability to create their own lesson activities. So if I'm from a student perspective and I create a lesson activity, I have access to all of the same 16 templates that my teacher would have access to. And then I could build that lesson activity and share it with my teacher. The really great thing about students creating is when a student shares a lesson activity, it is not going to share to the Snowflake community. It is only going to share into a group. So the teacher could create a group, add their students to that group, and then the student would only be able to share into that group. So any activities, they're not going to just be published on the web. They would be available only in the group, and the teacher would have to approve those lesson activities in the group. To give you an idea of what that looks like, if I create my geography class has an example. So I have my group members. So there's my student account. And if I look at the lesson activities, let me go to edit. So from the edit option, I have my students who have been added into the group. I, as the admin, am the one who would approve the lesson activities. And we can see right here under manage lesson activities, my students would have to have their lesson activity approved. So this lesson activity, Danielle's practice lesson, had to be accepted by me before it was added into that group. So just like I could remove a lesson activity if I felt that it didn't meet the requirements. And now that lesson activity will no longer be visible in my group. So that's another really great way to have students use choice boards, to use options of building their own lesson activities and sharing it within the group.
And can I add something here, Danielle?
Yes.
The really cool thing about doing that is once you start having the students create their own content, and we think of things like Webb's depth of knowledge or Bloom's taxonomy, we really are moving students forward in those frameworks, in that we're having them use a lot more strategic thinking and extended thinking, in that they're creating their own material and showing mastery of content using a variety of words or video or audio or whatever method they want to use. So it really takes the students from being like sitting in and taking in the content to creating it and sharing it and becoming much more of a part of it. So thank you for pointing that out, Danielle.
Yes, absolutely. And it's very easy for students to build. The lesson templates are all designed in a way that there's so many similar features. So if I were to build a bugs lesson activity, my students, as they're building, they're going to see the same layout of the screen, just like I would as a teacher. I'm going to see my left side where I would input my data, my information, and then my right side with my preview and my ability to change any of those options. When I was still teaching my sixth grade students, the week before Christmas vacation, we had finished our unit. I think we were studying ancient Egypt at the time. We finished it really early. And I had this extra time, and I knew, I'm like, I don't want to start a new unit. I want to do something that is going to maybe enrich the content and just be fun too. So I had my students design lesson activities where they became the teachers for second grade students. And since it was approaching the holidays, they had a very Christmas, holiday, winter themed lesson activities. And I gave them the choice of, you can pick from any of the 16 templates. You need to make one that is related to math, one that is related to maybe spelling words. I worked with the second grade teachers just to get an idea of what their students were learning. And then my students built lesson activities and then went in the couple days before our Christmas holiday and taught the second graders using their lesson activities. So they were able to play these fun games. And it really gave the students ownership over what they were building. So even though second grade was, a little bit younger for them, it still gave them a chance to practice some basic math skills and basic spelling skills, thinking about, the best way to deliver an activity that would be engaging for students. And it made them feel really special too, because sixth graders are like the lowest man on the totem pole of middle school. So they were pretty excited to go in and feel like the big kids going back to the elementary wing. So it was just another fun way to provide choice and options for students as they created. So if there are any other questions, I'd love to be able to answer those. This lesson activity is available in the Snowflake community. It's titled Student Choice Boards for ELA. So you can search if you are an ELA teacher and are interested in finding something to help inspire your students. That is available. But I would encourage you to design yours because they're really easy to do. The cards lesson template is perfect for designing those choice boards. Definitely makes it a lot easier than trying to do all of the super interactive hyperlinked Google Docs or PowerPoints where students go back and forth between a main page and the breakout pages. This kind of puts it all in one place for you.
So I would like to thank everyone that attended this evening. We enjoy doing these for you, and we are hopeful that you find them helpful. So let us know if you do. If you have any topics that you're interested in us covering, again, please feel free to email us. So again, Danielle, thank you. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week. Have a great week.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.